In this video, I'll be showing you 3 different methods to animate 2D cutout mouths using Sequencer and Unreal Engine. First, I'll show you method 1, which is the easiest to set up, then method 2, which is the same result but quicker to animate, and then I'll show you method 3, which is the same concept but with a 3D mouth. This first method is the easiest to set up and is the method I used for the mouths in my Meat Canyon Pringles animation. For this, you create a material by right-clicking in the content browser and then clicking material. I named mine m_p mouth for Pringle mouth. In this material, you can drag in any of your mouth PNGs and plug it into your material's base color. I like to use a neutral expression for this. I have my material's blend mode set to masked so I can plug my texture's alpha channel into opacity mask. Then you can right-click your texture and convert it into a parameter so that it can be switched out in a material instance. I renamed this P mouth and I also plugged in some scalar parameters for specularity and roughness. Once you're done with this material, you can save and go back to the content browser. Next, we're going to create a material instance for every one of our PNGs. You can right-click your material and create material instance. I like to name my instances to match the mouths, so I have pmouth_ah, pmouth_e, and so on. In each of these instances, check this box and then drag in the corresponding PNG. This is my _ah instance, so I would drag in my pmouth_ah PNG. Now to switch out your mouths in Sequencer, you would first drag in your character. Then on your character you can track the skeletal mesh component. On the skeletal mesh component, you can track a material element switcher. My mouth material is on element 5 of my character, so I chose the material element 5 switcher. Now you can scrub through the timeline and switch out all the material instances you made by clicking this dropdown and then searching for your materials. Since mine all have the same prefix, they're all next to each other in this list. When you lip sync, you can add an audio track by clicking Add Track, Audio Track, and then click this Add Audio to search for the files that you've imported into your project.
Why are you groaning like that?
Here's a quick warning for method 2. This method will probably seem very confusing because I'm not that great at explaining it, and also my material nodes are very messy, so hopefully this makes some sense. This method uses one material that contains all of the PNGs, which will be swapped out by changing a scalar parameter. Since there are so many texture maps in one material, you want to select all of them and switch the sampler source to shared wrap. Next, we need to create 2 material functions by right-clicking in the content browser and going to Materials and Textures, Material Function. Our first material function, which I've named mf_alpha blend, has an if node, which you can make by holding I and clicking. There are scalar input parameters plugged into A and B. You can make these by creating a function input node and changing the input type to scalar. I named these 2 parameter and hard-coded. Then we have 2 constants, which are created by holding 1 and clicking, and these are set to 1 and 0 and are plugged into these inputs. Our second material function is named mf_texture switch. This is where we create the inputs for each of our PNGs. For this one, I have 15 PNGs, so I have 15 function inputs that are numbered 0 through 14. Again, these are switched to a scalar input and renamed here 0 through 14. Input 0 is plugged into the A of a lerp node, which you can make by holding L and clicking. Input 1 is plugged into B. Then you create a lerp node for each of the other inputs, which are all plugged into the B inputs, and this chain of lerps is connected by the A inputs, which then goes into the output. Now the material function we made earlier, mf_alpha blend, gets plugged into the alpha of each lerp node. You can just drag it in from the content browser. Then you plug a constant into the hard-coded input of each of these material functions, which is start at 0 and go up by 1 each time. Lastly, we have one last function input, which is again set to scalar, and I named it switch parameter. This is plugged into the parameter input of each of these alpha blend functions. Okay, now we're back in our actual material. Here we can drag in our mf_ texture switch that we just made. This node will have numbered inputs, in my case numbered 0 through 14. You'll take each of your texture maps and plug them into these numbers. I did mine in order, 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 14. Next, since these are PNGs, we need to grab all of the alpha channels too. We can do this by duplicating our mf_ texture switch node, and then plugging in the alpha channels of our textures into the same numbers. Then you can plug this node into opacity or opacity mask, depending on which blend mode you want. Back here we have a scalar parameter, which is created by holding down S and clicking, which I have named switcher. This node gets plugged into the switch parameter of both of our material functions. This is the value that will determine which of these textures is shown. Okay, now here's where things get a little messy. For some reason, when I plug this first node into base color, it turns everything red. In fact, any texture map that I run through a material function gets turned red. I assume this is just a weird bug in Unreal Engine 5, so if you're following along in Unreal 4, you should leave a comment and let me know if you also have this issue. Since this material is for my eyes, which are only black and white, I was able to do a quick fix by running this through a desaturation node. However, this wouldn't work for anything with a wide range of colors, so my solution was to get rid of the mf_ switch function and create this monstrosity. Basically, each of these is the nodes copied from the material function, and instead of using these function inputs for the lerp nodes, our texture maps get plugged directly into the lerps. Same goes for the alpha channels down here. Then our picker parameter gets plugged into the parameter input of every one of these alpha blend functions. Then these two things get plugged into the base color and opacity inputs of our material. Once the materials are completed, right-click them and create a material instance. By using an instance on our model, we can change that picker parameter in Sequencer to change out our PNGs. In Sequencer, drag your character into here, then you can track its skeletal mesh component. On the skeletal mesh component, you can track certain materials. In my case, the mouth material is on element 3, so I would track element 3. On that element, I can add parameters here, so I would choose our picker parameter. Now as I scrub through the timeline, I can change this value to choose different PNGs and create keyframes for my mouth shapes. By default, our keyframes will gradually change between values, which we don't want. We can fix this by clicking here and changing this from cubic auto to constant. Now any keyframes that we add will be constant. I found it easiest to write down my mouth shapes on a sticky note for quick lip syncing. For me, this is way faster than the first method, where I had to search for a material every keyframe. Here's what it looks like after I keyframed the mouth and eyes.
Welcome to P-Finney Enterprises. Come on in and let me show you around.
The last method I wanted to show is pretty much the same as the first, but we're swapping out 3D meshes instead of materials. I haven't actually used this in any of my animations, but this is what I would do if I wanted to do a stop motion kind of style. This is a really rough example since I just took an old model of mine and chopped off the mouth, but it would look better if you use a character that has good topology, or if you created a model with this kind of lip syncing in mind. I would model a character with a place carved out of the head, and then I would make sure all of my mouths would fit the same way into that cavity, similar to how stop motion puppets work. Or another way I would do this is you could have just a flat spot on the head and then have your 3D mouth and lips kind of sit on top of it. For this example, I have my rigged character with its mouth missing, and then I have a folder for different mouth shapes. Then in Sequencer, you can drag in your mouthless character, and next you drag in one of your mouths from your scene. On this mouth, you can click Track, Attach, pick your character, and then pick a bone to attach your mouth to. In most cases, this will be the head bone. Now you can zero out your mouth's location and then adjust it to line up with your character. And now your mouth is attached to the head bone. Next, we can click Track on the mouth again and select Static Mesh Component. Then on the Static Mesh Component, hit Track and select Static Mesh. Now we can use this dropdown to switch out the mesh of this object, just like how we switched out our materials in the first method. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment if you found this interesting or helpful. I would love to see if anyone uses these methods in their own animations. And you should also leave a comment if you know of any other good lip syncing methods in Unreal Engine.